Today's session is about the chapter Ocean and Fisheries. Okay, so if we talk about the topic Ocean and Fisheries, then basically this is the key content that we need to cover in this chapter, which includes overfishing. We are going to talk about the causes of overfishing, the impacts of overfishing, and the solutions to overfishing are going to be discussed. Here we'll be discussing about bycatch, types of nets, the mesh size, etc. There is also something related to upwelling, fish farming, mariculture, types of fish nets is going to be discussed here. Subsistence fishing, marine fishing, etc. will be discussed. Uses of fish, economic benefits of fishing, El Nino, La Nina, direction of ocean currents, sustainable fishing, distribution of fish, etc. All of these are the things which are going to be discussed in the chapter Ocean and Fisheries. So if you cover this key content, then everything from this chapter is going to be covered, which means that you are prepared for the exam for this chapter. Okay, let's start over with this chapter. So the first thing that we have here is understanding the distribution of major fish population in the sea. If we talk about the major fish population in the sea, so majority of the fish are found at the point which is called as continental shelf, which is the area of the sea uh, nearer to the coast, and here the water quantity or the water level is going to be about 150 meters. This is the point where majority of the fish are found, and the fishermen they go there and they fish there. The question here arises that why majority of the fish are accumulated at the continental shelf. So the reason for being so is that the phytoplanktons, the plants under the sea on which the fish are going to feed, are available at the continental shelf. Then why are they available at the continental shelf? The phytoplanktons are available at the continental shelf because the sunlight reaches the continental shelf easily under the sea. So the phytoplanktons, the plants, can uh, prepare food by photosynthesis. So this is why the phytoplanktons are available at the continental shelf, as well as majority of the fish are located on the continental shelf where water is shallow, 150 meters. Okay, so the thing is that majority of the fishing is done at the continental shelf. However, some of the large fish are available at the continental slope, and even the fishermen they go till the continental rise. However, the lowest point on the sea that we have is the abyssal plain, which has been discovered so far. But the thing is that till the abyssal plain, it is quite difficult to go there for the fishermen to survive. This is why randomly some sort of fishing is being done at the abyssal plain. Okay. The next thing that needs to be understood here is about the direction of the winds and the temperature of the ocean. First of all, talking about the temperature of the ocean, so remember that at the equator, the temperature is hot because because the sunlight falls directly upon the equator, which means that the areas which are closer to the equator are going to experience high temperature, and the areas away from the equator will be experiencing low temperature. Now the thing is that if the areas which are closer to the equator they are experiencing high temperature, so what does it mean? It means that these areas are going to have the ocean currents warm as well, which means that the water that is going to be closer to the equator is going to be hot, and the water that is away from the equator is going to be cold. So if you can see here, certain cold currents come from the poles, warm currents come from the tropics, which means from the equator. Okay, so it means that we are understood about the water temperature. The next thing that we have is to understand the wind direction. So The if we talk about the wind direction in the southern hemisphere, so wind direction in the southern hemisphere is anti-clockwise. If you see below the equator towards the south, you are going to see the winds are moving anti-clockwise. However, if we talk about the northern direction, that is the northern hemisphere above the equator, so there the currents or the wind direction is clockwise. So a question can come in the examination asking you people to draw the direction of the current, so you people need to be aware about it. This is something related to the water temperature and the currents. Now when it comes to the fish, so one of the major issue nowadays, which is the highlight of environmental management, is overfishing. Now what is overfishing? Overfishing is the fishermen catching excess quantity of fish, even much excess quantity that the fish is not able to breed or lay eggs in much quantity. Even more than that, the fish is being caught. So this is overfishing, or we can say that if fishing is being done during the fish breeding season, fish breeding months are May, June, July, August. Even if during these months fishing is being done, then it is classified as overfishing, which means that a lot of fish are being caught. The question here arises that why more fish are being caught. So the first reason is the population is increasing. The second reason is that more employment, fishing is is providing more employment to the people. There are much bigger boats available, large nets are available. There are special devices, like for example a sonar is available, which provides exact location of the fish under the sea. Satellite images are available, weather forecast is available. So on these grounds, the fishermen, they are far more confident in performing fishing as compared to what they were before. And this is why fishing is being conducted on a large scale, which is called as overfishing. Now, if overfishing is going to be done, then the thing is that the fish are going to be lesser in quantity, the fish are going to go extinct, and the size of the fish is going to get progressively smaller, and this is going to cause the endangered species of the fish to go extinct. So which means that the marine biodiversity means the variety of fish available in the sea. The marine biodiversity is disturbed overall, which is basically the impact of overfishing. So nowadays, everyone across the world is concerned about overfishing, and they are devising various strategies to control overfishing. So when it comes to devising various strategies, so what the government has done, that the government has made laws for the fishermen to use smaller boats and smaller nets. Also, the government has placed quotas. Quota is fixing the quantity. The government has placed a quota, and the government has fixed the quantity, that this is the quantity that can be caught. Uh, no other quantity can be picked up except for that. This is another way out that the fishermen can be controlled from overfishing. Also, fishing was being done during the fish breeding seasons, as I have discussed. So, the government has introduced a policy of closed season, wherein during the fish breeding months, no fishing is allowed. There are certain areas where uh, certain endangered species were present. Then they were. It was reported that they are about to get extinct. So, those areas are completely banned from fishing. And what if there are two or three countries which are sharing a common ocean? Like, for example, if we talk about countries like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, they are sharing a common sea, which is the Arabian Sea. So, not alone India can prevent overfishing in the entire sea, not alone Bangladesh can do that, and same goes for Pakistan. So, here what needs to be done is that these three countries need to combine together, and they need to form international agreements. Now, these international agreements are going to be implemented, and they are going to make the countries work together in order to prevent overfishing in the ocean or the sea. So there are various international agreements that are being done. In your syllabus, you people are not required to remember the names of international agreements. Yes, but you need to remember the challenges of the international agreements. There are two major challenges of international agreements. The first major challenge associated with an international agreement is that the countries they don't cooperate. The second major challenge is that a lot of investment, a lot of finance is required, and the countries they don't provide that finance. Also, another strategy in some parts of Africa that was implemented was that an agent of the government, a representative of the government, used to accompany the fishermen in their boats into the sea so that he could physically witness that what was the amount of fish that was being caught. This was implemented in some parts of Africa. You people can remember it as an example. So that's going to be helpful. Now talking about the effectiveness of these strategies, that if these strategies are implemented, then what is going to be the effectiveness? What is going to be the benefit? So the first and the foremost thing is that the ocean is a large area. So it is difficult to monitor fishing, first of all. Secondly, I've told you international agreements, they require a lot of finance, and many people they rely on fishing as their primary source of income. So government cannot completely ban it. That is another issue. And it is not merely possible for the authorities to stretch across the entire ocean and to check that what is the amount of fish being caught. So these are some of the weaknesses of the strategies which are being implemented, but still the implementation of such strategies is required because still uh, there are large nets or large boats which are being used, and the fishermen they frequently trespass in the areas where they are not allowed to fish. So these things actually are the weaknesses of the strategies while fishing in the ocean. Another thing that we have is the difference between marine fishing and inland fishing. So remember that the fishing that is done in the rivers, in the ponds, in the lakes is called as inland fishing, and the fishing that is done in the sea is called as marine fishing. So what happens is that for preventing overfishing in the rivers, there is a concept called as fish farming which has been introduced, or also called as aquaculture, wherein the fisherman is going to buy a piece of land. On that piece of land, he is going to convert that area into a pond. This pond will be connected to a river nearby so that water is available, and the fish are going to be caught from the river and they are going to be bred into that area. This is fish farming. In this way, the quantity of fish can be increased, fish monitored, fish breeding can be done, and this will prevent overfishing as well. But the question here arises that this is the solution for the rivers. What is the solution for the sea? So the solution for the sea is mariculture. Now what's mariculture? Mariculture is basically that there was some area of the ocean. For that specific area of the ocean, what has been done is that for a particular area in the ocean where there are endangered species available, so the government can put barriers around that area, and the breeding of those endangered species can be done in that area where the boundary has been stretched upon. This is basically fish farming which is conducted in the sea, called as mariculture, that you select an area in the ocean That is the area where you are going to place a boundary wall, and within that boundary wall fish breeding is going to be done, and that is going to be monitored fish breeding. So the fish are going to be taken care of, etc. This is called as mariculture. So this is the solution of overfishing available in the sea, and if it is about the river, so the solution is aquaculture. The next thing is understanding the type of fish nets which are used for fishing in the sea, that is marine fishing. If we talk about the type of fish nets, so the first type of net that we have is trawlers. Trawlers are large nets which are tied to the boat, and then the net gets dragged in the sea once the boat moves, and the fish are going to get caught as the as the boat is going to move, and if the fish they pass by the net, they are going to get caught. This method is called as trawlers. The next method that we have is drift net. Now, what is a drift net? Drift nets are tied horizontally like a curtain in the sea. They are suspended in the sea like a curtain, as you can see in the picture. And fish food is attached in these nets. The fish are going to get caught once they are going to pass by. This is called as drift net. Apart from it, there is another type of fish net which is called as purse seine or seine net, wherein uh, a funnel shaped net is being used, as you can see in the picture, and this type of a net is highly favorable if you have all the fish gathered at a particular area called as a fish school. If large quantity of fish are available at a particular area, then what you can do is that you can use this type of net. Like for example, let me show you this picture. If you can see in this picture, a lot of fish are gathered at a particular area. This happens usually because of the fish aggregation devices. Now, what are the fish aggregation devices? These devices emit certain kind of radiations that attract the fish towards themselves. So the fish they gather at one point, and this first scene kind of a net can be used to catch all the fish together. This is used for catching large quantity of fish. The next type of net that we have is a dredge net. This is how a dredge net looks like. Dredge nets are also tied to the boat, and they are suspended in the sea, but they are suspended deep inside the sea. That is, if we want to catch marine life that is available at the seabed, at the bottom of the sea, so this dredge net is being used, uh, which gets dragged along the seabed, and mainly it is used to catch shellfish and other types of fish living in the mud. This is a dredge net, and this is being used. So you people are required to remember brief description of these types of nets as well. That is also important for you people. Apart from it, there are certain terminologies, like for example bycatch. Now what's bycatch? Bycatch is basically the fish tadpoles or the baby fish or the extra fish which is being caught which was not required by the fisherman. That is called as the bycatch. Now what happens is that if the baby fish they get caught along the large fish in the net, then the fishermen are going to throw the baby fish away, and this is going to affect the reproduction cycle of the fish. So bycatch is extremely harmful for the sustainability of the fisheries and should be avoided at all cost. Now, for the prevention of bycatch, the government has recommended the use of fish nets which are smaller in size, and the use of fish nets which are having smaller holes in them. That is the recommended type of a fish net which is required to be used in order to prevent bycatch. In order to prevent bycatch, step number one is use a small net and use a net which is having a smaller number of holes. If a net is having a lot of holes which are smaller in size, then it is called as large mesh size. Don't consider the word large as it is being something huge. Here the word large means more in number. So the net that is allowed is the net having small holes which are more in number. This is going to help avoid bycatch. However, the net which is having larger holes, less holes are going to be there obviously if they are going to be larger in size. So if the net is having larger holes, so that is not allowed. And the type of net which is allowed is the one which is having lesser holes, sorry, smaller holes, and which are more in number. So here large mesh size means smaller holes more in number. So this is the recommended thing, large mesh size, the smaller holes which are more in number on the net, and the net must be smaller in size. This is basically the mesh size and the net size which is recommended for preventing bycatch. Apart from bycatch, there is another terminology which is called as upwelling. Now, what is upwelling? Upwelling is basically that the minerals which are available in the mud of the ocean at the seabed, they are being sent upwards by the cold currents. The colder currents or the colder waves, they bring these minerals up towards the surface so that the phytoplanktons can use them and they can be used for the purpose of photosynthesis. So this is basically upwelling. Now, why are we discussing upwelling? So the reason for discussing upwelling is basically uh, discussing a natural disaster which is called as El Nino. Now, I have discussed with you people that on the equator, if you people can see, I have drawn an imaginary line called as the equator. So on the equator, there is high temperature, which means that the ocean area which is near to the equator is also going to have high temperature. Now, what happens is that due to the change in direction of the winds, this warmer ocean water starts to travel towards the southeast of the world, which is Australia. If you people can see on the map, I have marked A there. Now, what happens is that the ocean currents, they start to travel slowly and gradually towards the A that has been marked, which is Australia. Now, in Australia, there are colder currents available by default. Naturally, the water there is cold. Now, if the water that was available near the equator, the point that I have encircled on the map, if you can see, from there the hot water is traveling towards Australia, this warm water will overlap the cold water of Australia. Now, if this is going to happen, that the warm water traveling from closer to the equator is going towards Australia and it is overlapping the cold water of Australia. So, first of all, due to this sudden change of temperature, the fish are going to die that are available in the cold currents of Australia. Secondly, no evaporation will occur, which means that no rainfall will occur in the area due to the sudden change in temperature of water, and this will result in a drought in Australia. This entire situation is called as El Nino, and this is considered as a natural disaster because it is destroying the fish, because it is causing a drought in the area. Drought in the area means no crops, famine, food shortages, people are going to die, etc., etc. So this is called as El Nino. However, at times what happens is that the cold water that is available uh, away from the equator, like for example, the cold water that is available at this part, the cold water that is available at this part, if it starts to come towards the equator, so this cold water is going to get mixed with the warm water near the equator, and this is going to slightly change the water temperature. This movement of the water is called as La Nina. La Nina is not much harmful, and this is considered to be a normal process. But El Nino is considered to be harmful. Both of these words, El Nino and La Nina, are traditional Spanish words which were being used by the people in the past, and they are being carried forwarded nowadays as well. So they don't contain any literal kind of a meaning. They are just Spanish traditional words which are being used. So we have this thing El Nino, and the next thing that we have is La Nina, that needs to be understood by you people as well. Okay, the next thing that we have is basically the economic benefits of fishing. That if fishing is being conducted in an area, then what are the economic benefits to the people? So if we talk about the economic benefits of fishing to the people, so basically what's going to happen is that fishing is going to provide employment to the people. It is going to increase GDP of the country. Fish can be used as raw material in the industries, in the fertilizer industry, in manufacturing fish oil, etc. So yes, there are various economic benefits as well when it comes to fishing in a particular area. Now let's move on towards the key contents of the topic fishing so that we can check that what are the topics that we have covered so far. So have a look over there. We are done with overfishing, causes, impact, solutions. We have discussed bycatch. We have discussed the types of nets. We have talked about the mesh size. We are done with upwelling, fish farming, mariculture, types of fish nets. Then this is basically subsistence and marine fishing. Subsistence fishing is basically if the fisherman is catching the fish and he's not selling it, he's consuming it on his own. That's subsistence fishing. However, if the fisherman is catching the fish on a large scale and the purpose is to sell the fish, so that is marine fishing. We are done with the uses of fish. Is basically fish is used for industries and fish is used for manufacturing fish oil as a source of food. Some basic 2 or 3 uses you people can remember. Economic benefits of fishing we have discussed. El Nino and La Nina we have discussed. Direction of ocean currents we have discussed. Distribution of fish, which is basically the continental shelf, abyssal plain, etc. we have discussed. Then the thing is sustainable fishing. What is sustainable fishing? Sustainable fishing means that catching the fish in a manner that the fish are available in the present as well as for the future generation. I am repeating the definition. Catching the fish in a manner that the fish are available in the present as well as for the future generations. Now you people are going to ask that what are the ways or the strategies of sustainable fishing. So basically the solutions of overfishing that we had discussed were actually the strategies of sustainable fishing like closed seasons, quotas, heavy taxes, international agreements, etc. All of these are the strategies of sustainable fishing. So this is basically the key content of the chapter fishing. If you cover this content, then you are ready for this chapter. Thank you.